Emma, it's 2 p.m. Are you seriously still in bed? David's voice cut through my foggy consciousness like a knife. I struggled to open my eyes, feeling the familiar heaviness that seemed to press me into the mattress. My name is Emma Mitchell, and at 32, I couldn't understand why I was always so exhausted. I'm getting up, I mumbled, fighting against the overwhelming urge to close my eyes again. David stood in the doorway, his face twisted with frustration and something else, disappointment. "This is getting ridiculous," he said, yanking open the curtains. Sunlight flooded the room, making me wince. "You've slept through another meeting. Your boss called me again. Do you even care about your job anymore?" I did care. I cared so much it hurt. But no matter how many alarms I set, no matter how many cups of coffee I drank, I couldn't seem to stay awake. The exhaustion wasn't just physical. It was bone deep, all-consuming, and nothing seemed to help. "I'm trying, David," I whispered, finally managing to sit up. The room spun slightly, and I gripped the edge of the bed to steady myself. "Something's wrong. This isn't normal tiredness." He scoffed, a sound I'd become painfully familiar with over the past year. "What's wrong is that you stay up late watching Netflix and then act surprised when you can't wake up. You're just lazy, Emma. Everyone gets tired, but the rest of us manage to be functional adults." The words stung, but they weren't new. Over the past year, as my condition had worsened, David's patience had eroded. Gone was the supportive husband who used to bring me tea when I wasn't feeling well. In his place was this frustrated, angry man who seemed convinced I was choosing to ruin my life, and by extension his. "I'm going to see a doctor," I said, reaching for my phone. "There has to be an explanation." "Another doctor?" David threw his hands up in exasperation. "We've already wasted thousands on blood tests and vitamins. They all say the same thing. You're perfectly healthy. You just need to get your act together." But the doctors hadn't all said the same thing. The last one, Dr. Carter, had mentioned something about a sleep study. She'd seemed concerned when I described how I could sleep for 14 hours and still wake up exhausted. How I'd experienced episodes of sudden muscle weakness when laughing or feeling strong emotions. "Dr. Carter referred me to a sleep specialist," I said, showing him the appointment confirmation on my phone. "The consultation is next week." David grabbed the phone from my hand, scanning the details. His expression darkened. $2,000 for someone to watch you sleep? Absolutely not. We can't keep throwing money away on your hypochondria. "It's my money," I said quietly, a spark of defiance cutting through the fog. "From my personal savings. Money you should be contributing to our future. We're supposed to be saving for a house, remember? Or has your constant sleeping made you forget about our plans too?" The argument that followed was familiar. My laziness was ruining our marriage. I was becoming a burden. His friends' wives managed to work full-time jobs without needing naps like a toddler. By the time he left for work, slamming the door behind him, I was fighting back tears. I dragged myself to the shower, trying to wash away the hurt along with the sleep. As I dressed, I caught sight of myself in the mirror, dark circles under my eyes. Despite having just slept for over 12 hours, I hardly recognized myself anymore. That afternoon, I received a call from my boss. It was the third meeting I'd missed this month, and her patience was wearing thin. "Emma, I've tried to be understanding, but this can't continue. Either you get this sorted out, or we'll have to discuss your position with the company." I hung up and finally let the tears fall. Everything I'd worked for was slipping away. My career, my marriage, my dignity. David's words echoed in my head. Lazy, dramatic, hypochondriac. But as I sat there, fighting to keep my eyes open despite having just woken up, I knew in my heart that something was seriously wrong. With trembling fingers, I confirmed the sleep study appointment. David might never forgive me for spending the money, but I couldn't keep living like this. I needed answers, even if they weren't the ones my husband wanted to hear. What I didn't know then was that the sleep study would reveal something that would shake our lives to the core and make David regret every cruel word he'd ever said to me about being lazy. The sleep center looked more like a hotel than a medical facility. As I checked in for my overnight study, David's last words before I left rang in my ears. "Don't expect me to coddle you when this turns out to be another waste of money." Dr. Martinez, the sleep specialist, was different from the other doctors I'd seen. She didn't dismiss my symptoms or suggest I just needed a better bedtime routine. Instead, she listened intently as I described the crushing fatigue, the sudden muscle weakness when I laughed or felt strong emotions, and the vivid dreams that sometimes felt more real than reality. These symptoms are concerning, she said, making detailed notes. Especially the muscle weakness. You mentioned it happens with strong emotions. I nodded, remembering the incident at my niece's birthday party when I collapsed while laughing, much to David's embarrassment. He half carried, half dragged me to the car, lecturing me about making the scene. We're going to do a comprehensive study tonight, Dr. Martinez explained. We'll monitor your brain waves, heart rate, breathing, and muscle movements. It might seem like a lot of equipment, but try to sleep as naturally as possible. As the technician attached the various sensors to my head and body, I felt a mix of hope and fear. What if David was right? What if they found nothing wrong with me? The night passed in fragments of consciousness. I remembered the technician's voice through the intercom, asking me to sleep on my back, then my side. I remembered the vivid dreams that always plagued me, and the strange sensation of being awake and asleep at the same time. The next morning, instead of sending me home with a wait for our call, Dr. Martinez asked me to stay for an additional test called the multiple sleep latency test, and it's AITA. We need to measure how quickly you fall asleep during the day, she explained. Every 2 hours, you'll have the opportunity to nap while we monitor you. By late afternoon, I was exhausted from the repeated nap tests, but Dr. Martinez's expression had changed from professional interest to intense concern. She asked me to come to her office, where she pulled up several graphs on her computer screen. Emma, she began, her voice gentle but serious, your sleep study results are quite significant. During the night, we observed several abnormalities in your sleep architecture, including something called sleep onset REM periods. And during today's nap tests, you fell asleep in an average of less than 3 minutes. My heart began to race. What does that mean? Combined with your symptoms, these results strongly indicate narcolepsy with cataplexy. The muscle weakness you experience with emotions, that's cataplexy, and it's a hallmark sign of type 1 narcolepsy. The word hit me like a physical blow. Narcolepsy, a real neurological condition. Not laziness, not attention-seeking, not poor sleep habits. It's a chronic neurological disorder, Dr. Martinez continued, caused by the brain's inability to regulate sleep-wake cycles normally. Your brain lacks a chemical called hypocretin, which helps maintain wakefulness. This isn't your fault, Emma, and it's certainly not a choice. Tears rolled down my cheeks as years of guilt and self-doubt began to lift. Can you write this down? My husband, he needs to see this. Dr. Martinez nodded, printing out the test results and a detailed explanation of narcolepsy. This condition is often misunderstood. Many patients go years without proper diagnosis, being blamed for symptoms they can't control. But now that we know what we're dealing with, we can start treatment. She prescribed medication and discussed lifestyle adjustments, but I was barely listening. All I could think about was showing these results to David, proving that I wasn't lazy or making excuses. When I got home, David was waiting, his expression already skeptical. Well, what's the verdict on your expensive nap? Without a word, I handed him the folder of test results. He began reading, his dismissive expression slowly morphing into confusion, then shock. Narcolepsy. His voice cracked. But that's a real condition. Yes, I said quietly. A real neurological condition that I've been trying to tell you about while you called me lazy and dramatic. His face paled as he continued reading Dr. Martinez's detailed explanation, especially the part about narcolepsy being a chronic disability. When he reached the section about cataplexy and how it was triggered by emotional responses, I saw his hands begin to shake. All those times, he whispered, when you collapsed while laughing or got weak when you were upset. I thought you were being dramatic. I told everyone you were doing it for attention. The realization of how he treated me seemed to hit him all at once. He looked up at me, his eyes filling with tears, but I wasn't ready for his apology. Not yet. I need to rest, I said, turning toward the bedroom. The testing was exhausting. We can talk more tomorrow. As I closed the door, I heard him sink into a chair, the papers rustling as he continued reading. The sound of his quiet sobbing followed me into sleep, but for the first time in years, I drifted off without feeling guilty about needing to rest. The weeks following my diagnosis brought changes I never expected. David's transformation from skeptic to advocate was dramatic, but it didn't immediately heal the wounds his years of doubt had created. One morning, I found him at the kitchen table, surrounded by printouts about narcolepsy, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "I've been researching all night," he said, his voice rough. "Why didn't any of the other doctors catch this? How could I have been so blind?" I poured myself a cup of coffee, part of my new strictly regulated medication and sleep schedule. "It wouldn't have mattered if they had," I replied. "You were convinced I was making excuses." His face crumpled. "Emma, I don't know how to fix this. Every time I see you take your medication, I remember all the horrible things I said. Every time you need to take a scheduled nap, I remember how I told my family you were just lazy." The medication Dr. Martinez prescribed was helping. I could stay awake for longer periods, and the cataplexy attacks were less frequent. But it wasn't a cure. Narcolepsy would be part of my life forever. "You know what the worst part was?" I said, sitting across from him. "It wasn't just the insults or the accusations. It was the loneliness. When I needed my partner most, you became my biggest critic." David reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I need time," I said. "I'm still processing everything. Not just the diagnosis, but the years of emotional damage that came before it." He nodded, understanding finally reflecting in his eyes. "What can I do?" "Start by telling everyone the truth," I said. "All those people you told I was lazy or seeking attention, they need to know the real story." That afternoon, David made a public post on social media. He detailed my diagnosis, but more importantly, he acknowledged his own role in making my struggle harder. He apologized for spreading misconceptions about my symptoms and for dismissing a serious medical condition as character flaws. The responses were overwhelming. Other people with invisible illnesses shared their stories of being disbelieved. Some of our friends admitted they judged me based on David's complaints, offering heartfelt apologies. My boss, who'd been ready to fire me, became unexpectedly supportive after receiving documentation about my condition. She worked with HR to arrange accommodations, a flexible schedule, a small office with a reclining chair for scheduled naps, and understanding when I needed to work from home. But the most surprising change came from David's family. His mother, who had often echoed his criticisms about my laziness, showed up at our door in tears. "I failed you as a mother-in-law," she said, holding a large binder. "I should have supported you, not judged you." The binder contained research on narcolepsy, local support groups, and even recipes designed to help maintain energy levels throughout the day. As months passed, I learned to navigate life with my diagnosis. The medication helped, but I still had bad days. The difference was that now, instead of criticism, I had support. David attended every doctor's appointment, took notes, and asked questions. He downloaded apps to track my medication schedule and made sure our social events aligned with my energy levels. But most importantly, he listened when I talked about how his past behavior had affected me. "I need you to understand something," I told him during one of our many conversations about the past. "Your apology is accepted, but trust takes time to rebuild. For years, you made me doubt myself, made me feel worthless because of something I couldn't control." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I know, and I'll spend the rest of our lives making it up to you." 1 year after my diagnosis, I started a support group for people with narcolepsy and their families. During our first meeting, I shared my story, including the painful years before diagnosis. David sat in the back of the room, listening as I described the impact of having my symptoms dismissed by the person who was supposed to love me most. After the meeting, a young woman approached us, her husband hovering nervously behind her. "Your story," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "It's exactly what we're going through." I've been telling him something's wrong, but David stepped forward. "Let me talk to your husband," he said. "I know exactly what he's thinking, and I know exactly how wrong he is." Watching him share our story, not just my diagnosis, but his own journey from skeptic to supporter, I felt a complex mix of emotions. The hurt hadn't completely healed, but something new was growing in its place: purpose. My narcolepsy wasn't just a medical condition anymore. It had become a powerful lesson about trust, validation, and the danger of dismissing someone's struggles. David had learned this lesson the hard way, but his tears during that first diagnosis had marked the beginning of real change. As I watched him earnestly educating others about the condition he'd once dismissed, I realized that sometimes the hardest lessons create the strongest advocates. We couldn't change our past, but we could help others avoid the same painful journey. "They love me more." Victoria's smug voice carried across my kitchen as I stood frozen, my nurse's scrubs still on for my night shift. I'm basically their real mommy now. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 32, I never expected to hear those words from my sister-in-law while my twins played in the next room. Single motherhood wasn't my choice. Cancer took Marcus when the kids were just 3, leaving me to raise Emma and Ethan alone. Victoria, Marcus's sister, had offered to help with childcare while I worked nights at the hospital. I thought she was being kind. I was wrong. What did you just say? I managed to keep my voice steady, though my hands shook as I set down my coffee mug. Victoria lounged against my counter like she owned it, her designer outfit a stark contrast to my worn scrubs. Oh, come on, Olivia. You're never here. Someone has to be their mother figure. She examined her manicured nails with an air of superiority. Besides, they started calling me mommy on their own. The room spun slightly as her words sank in. My children, my babies, were being manipulated while I worked exhausting shifts to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. Before I could respond, Emma's voice drifted from the living room. Mommy Vicky, can we have cookies? Victoria's triumphant smile made my stomach turn. See, they know who really takes care of them. I wanted to scream, to throw her out of my house, to protect my children from her manipulation. But years of handling difficult patients had taught me the value of staying calm in a crisis. How long has this been going on? Oh, months now, Victoria waved dismissively. I've been teaching them about what a real mother should be like. Someone who's actually there, who doesn't abandon them for work every night. She reached for her designer purse. In fact, I've been documenting everything. Want to see their Mother's Day cards to me? Something in me snapped, but not in the way she expected. A strange calm settled over me as pieces started falling into place. The way Emma and Ethan had grown distant, their reluctance to talk about their time with their aunt, the mysterious new toys that appeared despite my strict budget. That's interesting, I said softly, pulling out my phone. Would you mind saying that again? About teaching them to call you mommy? Victoria rolled her eyes. Are you dense? I said I've been showing them what a real mother is like. They call me Mommy Vicky now because they know I'm better for them than you. I hit stop on the recording, my hands steady now. Perfect, thank you. Her smug expression faltered slightly. What are you doing? Getting evidence, I replied, my voice cool. You know, to go with the nanny cam footage. The color drained from Victoria's face. What nanny cam? I smiled, thinking of the small device my friend Sarah, a social worker, had insisted I install 3 months ago when she noticed changes in the twins' behavior. The one that's been recording everything. Every manipulation, every attempt to alienate my children from me, every moment you tried to replace their mother. Victoria's composure cracked. You're lying. You're just jealous because they love me more. Mommy? Ethan's small voice came from the doorway. Both our heads snapped around to see my son standing there, clutching his favorite stuffed lion. You're home. Before Victoria could react, Ethan ran to me, wrapping his arms around my legs. The genuine love in his embrace made my heart ache. How dare she try to steal these moments from us? Don't worry, sweetie, Victoria cut in quickly, her voice honey sweet. Mommy Vicky is still here. Why don't we? That's enough. My tone could have frozen fire. Emma, honey, can you come here please? My daughter appeared, looking uncertain as she glanced between Victoria and me. The sight of her hesitation made my resolve stronger. This ended now. Kids, Aunt Victoria was just leaving. Say goodbye. Victoria's face twisted with anger. You can't do this. They need me. Tell her, kids. Tell her how much better it is when you're with Mommy Vicky. But something in my expression must have finally registered with her because she took a step back. This isn't over, she hissed, grabbing her purse. You'll regret this. I have rights. I held my ground, one hand on each of my children's shoulders. The only rights you had were the ones I gave you when I trusted you with my children. That trust is gone. Get out of my house. After Victoria stormed out, slamming the door behind her, I knelt down to hug my twins properly. They clung to me, and I could feel their confusion and fear. I'm so sorry, Mommy, Emma whispered. Aunt Vicky said you didn't want to be with us. That's why you work so much. My heart shattered. No, baby. I work because I love you both so much. Everything I do is for you. She said we shouldn't tell you about the Mommy Vicky thing, Ethan added, his voice small. She said it would make you mad. I pulled back to look at their precious faces, wiping away Emma's tears. Listen to me, both of you. You can always tell me anything. I'm your mother, and nothing will ever change that. Not work, not time apart, and certainly not Aunt Victoria. As I held them close, my mind was already racing. The recording, the nanny cam footage, the way Victoria had practically confessed to parental alienation. It was all evidence. But I knew my sister-in-law. This wasn't over. She would try to paint me as the villain, use my work schedule against me, maybe even try for custody. What she didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything too. Every shift I worked to provide for my children, every moment I spent with them, every milestone and memory. I had witnesses, records, and now proof of her manipulation. Victoria thought she could take my children from me. She was about to learn what a real mother was capable of. The next morning, I sat in Sarah's office, watching her face darken as she reviewed the nanny cam footage. My friend had been a social worker long enough to maintain her professional composure, but I could see her jaw tighten with each manipulative scene she witnessed. This is textbook parental alienation, she said finally, pausing the video. Victoria deliberately undermined your relationship with Emma and Ethan. Look here, she pointed to the screen. She's literally coaching them to keep secrets from you. I nodded, my hands wrapped tightly around my coffee cup. She sent me this an hour ago. I handed Sarah my phone, showing Victoria's latest text. The kids are crying for their mommy Vicky. Hope you're happy destroying their happiness. My lawyer will be in touch. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She's trying to intimidate you. Has she made any attempts to contact the children? She's been calling the house nonstop. I blocked her number, but she's using different phones. I pulled out a notebook where I documented every call, every message. She also showed up at their school yesterday. She what? Sarah sat up straighter. The principal called me. Victoria tried to pick them up, claiming she was their primary caregiver. Thankfully, I'd already updated their emergency contact list and provided documentation about the situation. Sarah began typing rapidly on her computer. Smart move. We need to file for an emergency restraining order. Victoria's behavior is escalating and she was interrupted by my phone buzzing with a new message. It was from my mother-in-law, Victoria's mother. How dare you keep my grandchildren from their aunt? Victoria has been more of a mother to them than you ever were. We're taking this to court. I showed Sarah the message, my hand steady despite the threat. They're trying to build a case against me. Victoria's probably been planning this for months. But she didn't plan on the evidence we have. Sarah reminded me, pulling out a thick folder. I've been keeping records since I first noticed the changes in Emma and Ethan's behavior. Their teachers have documented everything too. The shifts in mood, the confusion about who to call mom, even drawings from art therapy sessions. A knock at the door made us both look up. Sarah's colleague, James Morton, one of the city's top family law attorneys, entered with a grave expression. Victoria Palmer just filed for emergency custody, he announced without preamble. She's claiming you're an absent mother who works excessive hours and neglects your children's emotional needs. Instead of panic, I felt a strange sense of calm. She played right into our hands, didn't she? James's serious expression cracked into a slight smile. Indeed, her filing gives us the perfect opportunity to present our evidence. The judge assigned to the case, Henderson, has zero tolerance for parental alienation. What about my work schedule? I asked. They'll use my night shifts against me. Actually, Sarah interjected. I've got statements from your supervisor and coworkers about how you specifically chose night shifts to maximize time with the kids. You're there for breakfast, school drop-offs, homework, dinner. You've structured your entire schedule around their needs. James nodded approvingly. Plus, we have documentation of every attempt you've made to provide for your children since Marcus's death. Insurance policies, college funds, grief counseling, you've gone above and beyond. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a social media notification. Victoria had posted a long, tearful status about being cruelly separated from my beloved children who need their mommy Vicky. The comments were filling with sympathetic responses from people who didn't know the truth. She's trying to control the narrative, I said, showing them the post. Let her, James advised. Every public post, every message, every attempt to manipulate the situation just strengthens our case. Sarah squeezed my hand. The hearing is set for next week. Victoria thinks she's going to blindside you with this custody suit, but we've got something she doesn't. What's that? The truth, Sarah said simply, and more importantly, evidence of how hard you fought to be there for your children despite everything. That evening, as I tucked Emma and Ethan into bed, I could see the lingering confusion in their eyes. Victoria's manipulation had left its mark, but children are remarkably resilient when shown consistent love and honesty. Mommy? Emma asked as I kissed her forehead. Are we bad for calling Aunt Victoria Mommy sometimes? My heart ached, but I kept my voice gentle. No, sweetheart, you're not bad at all. Aunt Victoria shouldn't have asked you to do that, but it wasn't your fault. She said you'd leave us like Daddy did, Ethan whispered from his bed. I moved to sit beside him, gathering both my children close. Listen to me, both of you. Daddy didn't choose to leave us, he was very sick, remember? And I will never, ever leave you. Everything I do, every moment I work, it's all for you. You're my whole world. As they drifted off to sleep, I checked my phone one last time. More messages from Victoria and my in-laws, more threats, more attempts to make me doubt myself. But they didn't know what was coming. They thought they could use my dedication to my children against me, paint my hard work as neglect. They were about to learn that a mother's love isn't measured in hours present, but in sacrifices made and battles fought. Victoria wanted a war. Fine, but she'd started a fight she couldn't win, because unlike her, I wasn't fighting for the right to be called Mom. I was fighting for my children. The courtroom was silent as the nanny cam footage played. Victoria's voice filled the room, clear and damning. Your real mommy doesn't love you enough to stay home. That's why you have Mommy Vicky now. I watched Victoria's face drain of color as scene after scene showed her systematic manipulation of my children. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his seat as the evidence mounted. Text messages, social media posts, witness statements from teachers and neighbors. Judge Henderson's expression grew sterner with each piece of evidence. When the video ended, she removed her glasses and fixed Victoria with a piercing stare. Mrs. Palmer, she addressed Victoria, in my 20 years on the family court bench, I have rarely seen such a calculated attempt at parental alienation. You deliberately undermined these children's relationship with their mother, while their father's death was still fresh in their minds. Victoria stood up, her designer outfit and perfectly styled hair doing nothing to hide her desperation. Your Honor, I only wanted what was best for the children. Their mother works nights, they needed. Silence. Judge Henderson's voice cracked like a whip. What these children needed was stability and support, not manipulation. She turned to me. Mrs. Parker, your work schedule documentation shows remarkable dedication to maintaining consistent time with your children despite working nights. Your supervisor's statement about you specifically requesting night shifts to maximize daytime hours with your children is particularly noteworthy. My lawyer presented one final piece of evidence, a recording from just 2 days ago, when Victoria had shown up at my house unannounced. I'll tell everyone what a horrible mother you are. Victoria's voice shrieked through the speakers. I'll make sure everyone knows you abandoned them to me. I deserve to be their mother. The silence that followed was deafening. Judge Henderson didn't hesitate. The court finds no merit whatsoever in Mrs. Palmer's petition for custody. Furthermore, I am issuing an immediate restraining order. Mrs. Palmer, you are to have no contact with Mrs. Parker or her children. Any violation will result in criminal charges. Victoria's face contorted with rage. You can't do this. They need me. Tell her mother. My mother-in-law, who had been sitting behind Victoria throughout the hearing, finally spoke up, but not in the way Victoria expected. Enough, Victoria. Her voice trembled. I've seen the evidence. What you did. Marcus would be ashamed. Victoria's composure shattered completely. Mother, how dare you? I did this for them. No, I said quietly, speaking for the first time since the hearing began. You did this for yourself. My children were never yours to take. As Victoria was led out by her lawyer, still protesting, Judge Henderson addressed me directly. Mrs. Parker, the court commends your handling of this situation. Instead of reacting emotionally, you gathered evidence and protected your children through proper legal channels. That shows true maternal instinct. Outside the courthouse, Sarah hugged me tightly. It's over, she whispered. You did it. But I knew the real work was just beginning. That evening, I sat down with Emma and Ethan for an honest conversation. Is Aunt Victoria in trouble? Emma asked, curled up beside me on the couch. Yes, sweetheart. What she did wasn't right, and she won't be able to confuse you anymore. She said she loved us more, Ethan said quietly. But she made us keep secrets. You said people who love us don't make us keep secrets. I pulled them both closer. That's right, real love is honest. It's being there through the hard times, working to give you the best life possible, and always telling the truth. Like you do, Emma said, looking up at me with clear eyes, free from Victoria's influence at last. Over the next few months, we worked with a family therapist to heal the damage Victoria's manipulation had caused. Slowly but surely, my children's trust in me grew stronger than ever. They understood now why I worked nights, why every decision I made was for their benefit. My mother-in-law, to her credit, became our strongest supporter. She cut ties with Victoria and dedicated herself to being a positive presence in her grandchildren's lives. 1 year after the court hearing, I found Emma's school essay on her desk. The title read, "My Hero, My Mom." Her words brought tears to my eyes. Some people think heroes don't work night shifts or sleep during the day. But my mom is a hero because she does everything for us. She's there for breakfast and dinner, helps with homework, and tucks us in even when she's tired. She fought for us when someone tried to take us away. That's what real mommies do. Victoria had tried to steal my children's love by being the fun mom, the one who was always available. But she never understood that motherhood isn't about being perfect or present every moment. It's about sacrifice, dedication, and fighting for your children's well-being no matter what. My kids didn't need a mommy Vicky. They just needed their mom, the one who had been there all along, working nights to support them, loving them unconditionally, and willing to fight any battle to keep them safe. That's what real mothers do. Your daughters don't deserve these dolls, mine do. Amanda's voice dripped with disdain as she clutched my mother's antique doll collection to her chest. I stood in the doorway of my climate-controlled storage unit, trying to process the scene before me. My sister-in-law had somehow gained access and was now claiming my daughter's inheritance as her own. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 35, I never imagined I'd be facing such a betrayal. The antique doll collection had been in my family for generations, carefully preserved and passed down from mother to daughter. My mom had spent years teaching me about each unique piece, its history and proper care, before she passed away last year. Amanda, those dolls are meant for my daughters. Mom specifically left them in her will for Emma and Sophie, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the anger building inside me. My twin girls, now 8, had been looking forward to receiving these precious heirlooms on their upcoming birthday, just as I had at their age. Amanda sneered, adjusting her designer handbag while balancing the box of priceless dolls. Please, your girls don't even appreciate fine things. They're always running around in the dirt, playing sports. My precious Lily and Rose know the value of beautiful collectibles. They deserve these more. I watched as she began cataloging the dolls with her phone camera, probably already planning how to display them in her showcase home. What she didn't know was that I had been expecting something like this ever since she started asking suspicious questions about the collection's storage location. You do realize this is theft, right? I asked calmly, pulling out my home phone. I have the storage unit's security footage, and those dolls are legally documented as my daughter's inheritance. Amanda's perfectly made-up face twisted into a smirk. Oh, save your threats. James will never let you cause trouble over this. He knows how much my girls love antique dolls. Besides, she added, a triumphant gleam in her eye, I already have his approval. James, my husband's brother, had always given in to Amanda's demands, but this time she had gone too far. What she didn't know was that I had taken precautions months ago after overhearing her boasting at a family dinner about how she'd acquired her cousin's vintage jewelry collection. Keep them, I said, surprising both of us with my calm demeanor. If you think your girls deserve them more, then take them. Amanda's expression flickered between suspicion and victory. She hadn't expected me to give in so easily. Well, good. Finally, you're being reasonable. These dolls will be much better appreciated in my home. As she strutted past me with her stolen treasure, I couldn't help but smile slightly. She had no idea what she'd just taken, or what was about to unfold. That evening, as I tucked my daughters into bed, Emma asked about the dolls. Mom, when can we see great-grandma's special dollies? I smoothed her hair back, sharing a knowing look with Sophie. Soon, sweetheart. Very soon. Remember what I taught you about patience? The girls nodded, repeating a lesson they had learned from their grandmother. Good things come to those who wait. Later that night, I called my mother's best friend, Margaret, who had been like an aunt to me growing up. She had helped me prepare for this very scenario. Amanda took them. Margaret asked, though she didn't sound surprised. Just like you predicted. Did she notice anything unusual about them? I smiled, settling into my favorite armchair. Not yet, but she will. 6 months ago, when Amanda started showing too much interest in the collection, Margaret and I had taken precautions. As a retired museum curator specializing in antique dolls, Margaret had connections that proved invaluable. The replicas should hold up to basic scrutiny, Margaret assured me. But the moment she tries to have them appraised or authenticated, that's exactly what I'm counting on, I replied. Knowing Amanda, she won't be able to resist showing them off to her collector friends. The real dolls, all 23 of them, were safely stored in a secure vault at Margaret's museum, each one properly documented and insured. The replicas Amanda had stolen, while beautifully crafted, were exactly that, replicas. High-quality ones, with subtle markers that any serious collector would recognize immediately. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. Just finished arranging the dolls in my special display case. You should see how beautiful they look in a proper home. My girls are thrilled. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my email and confirmed my appointment with Mr. Davidson, a prominent antique doll collector who frequently collaborated with Margaret. He had agreed to visit Amanda's weekly coffee gathering, where she loved showing off her latest acquisitions to her socialite friends. As I prepared for bed, I thought about my mother and how she had always emphasized the importance of protecting our family's legacy. Sometimes, she had told me, the best way to protect something precious is to let others reveal their true colors. Tomorrow, Amanda would host her weekly coffee morning, proudly displaying her newly acquired antique doll collection. Mr. Davidson would be there, ready to admire her latest treasures. And that's when the real show would begin. I slept peacefully that night, knowing that sometimes justice comes not from confrontation, but from giving people just enough rope to hang themselves. Amanda's weekly coffee gathering was in full swing when Mr. Davidson arrived. Through the bay window of her Mediterranean-style home, I could see her holding court among her socialite friends, gesturing animatedly toward the display case containing her antique dolls. I waited in my car across the street, watching as Mr. Davidson, distinguished in his tweed jacket, made his way to her front door. Margaret had assured me he was the perfect person for this. Not only was he one of the most respected doll collectors in the country, but he also had a particular distaste for frauds and thieves. My phone buzzed with a text from James, my brother-in-law. Amanda says you're spreading lies about the dolls. Those were gifted to her. Stop causing drama. I smiled, typing back a simple response. Just wait. Through the window, I saw Amanda welcoming Mr. Davidson with exaggerated enthusiasm. She'd been beside herself when her friend Patricia mentioned knowing a prominent collector who'd love to see her family heirlooms. I stepped out of my car and made my way to the house, timing my arrival perfectly. Amanda was just leading Mr. Davidson to the display case when I rang the doorbell. Her housekeeper let me in, looking confused at my unexpected appearance. Olivia. Amanda's voice hit a pitch that could shatter glass. What are you doing here? I heard you were showing Mom's doll collection, I said pleasantly. I thought I might share some of their history. Mr. Davidson turned to me with interest. Ah, so these dolls belong to your mother. Actually, I began, but Amanda cut me off. They're mine now, she said quickly. A family gift. Look at this one, Mr. Davidson. It's a rare German piece from the 1860s. I watched as Mr. Davidson adjusted his glasses, carefully examining the doll Amanda was practically shoving in his face. His expression remained neutral, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. Interesting, he murmured. May I? He held out his hands, and Amanda proudly handed him the doll. The room fell silent as he examined it, turning it gently in his experienced hands. Amanda's friends watched eagerly, waiting for his validation of their hostess's prestigious collection. Mrs. Bennet, he said finally, using Amanda's married name, where did you say you acquired these dolls? They're family heirlooms, she repeated, shooting me a warning glare, passed down through generations. I see, he placed the doll back in its stand with careful precision. And you've had them authenticated, of course. Amanda's smile faltered slightly. Well, no, but their provenance is clear. Just look at the craftsmanship. Yes, let's talk about that craftsmanship. Mr. Davidson turned to address the room. Ladies, what we have here is actually quite remarkable. But perhaps not in the way you might think. I could see the color beginning to drain from Amanda's face. These dolls, he continued, are exceptional replicas. The attention to detail is impressive. But they're not originals. In fact, he picked up another doll. I recognize the artist's work. These were created by Victoria Mason, one of the finest reproduction artists in the field. The room erupted in whispers. Amanda's friends exchanged glances, some hiding smirks behind their coffee cups. That's impossible, Amanda sputtered. These are authentic antiques. Olivia's mother collected them. Actually, I spoke up, pulling out my phone. Would you like to see the real collection? I pulled up the photos Margaret had sent me that morning, the genuine dolls, safely displayed in the museum's preservation room. These are my mother's dolls, documented and authenticated. What you have, Amanda, are the replicas I had made after you started asking too many questions about their storage location. Amanda's face went from white to red in seconds. You tricked me. No, Amanda, you tried to steal from my daughters, and you got exactly what you deserved. I turned to Mr. Davidson. Thank you for coming. Margaret sends her regards. Margaret Reynolds, Amanda's friend Patricia gasped. The museum curator, you know her. She was my mother's best friend, I replied. She helped me protect our family's legacy from theft. The whispers grew louder. Amanda stood frozen, her perfect world crumbling around her as her friends began gathering their purses and making excuses to leave early. James arrived just as the last guests were hurrying out. What's going on? Amanda, why is everyone leaving? Your wife just got caught trying to steal valuable antiques, Mr. Davidson informed him calmly. And not very successfully, I might add. I watched as James looked between his humiliated wife and the display case of replica dolls, realization slowly dawning on his face. Amanda, you said Olivia gave these to you. She's lying, Amanda shrieked. She set me up. She wanted to humiliate me. No, I said quietly. You did that all on your own. I just made sure you couldn't steal from my daughters. As I left Amanda's house that afternoon, I could hear her shrill voice still trying to explain, to justify, to shift blame. But it was too late. Her reputation among her social circle was shattered, and the truth about her attempt to steal family heirlooms was already spreading through text messages and phone calls. My phone buzzed one more time, a message from Margaret. The real dolls are ready for your girls whenever you want to pick them up. Your mother would be proud. I smiled, thinking of Emma and Sophie's upcoming birthday. They would finally receive their inheritance just as planned, while Amanda was left with nothing but expensive replicas and a ruined reputation. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about confrontation. It's about letting someone's own actions be their undoing. 1 month after the coffee gathering incident, I stood in Margaret's museum office, watching as she carefully unwrapped the real antique dolls. Each one emerged from its protective covering like a butterfly from a cocoon, their authentic beauty even more striking after everything that had happened. The girls are going to love these, Margaret said, gently placing the last doll in the special display case she had made for them. Sarah would be so happy to know her granddaughters will continue the tradition. My mother's presence felt strong in that moment, and I could almost hear her laugh. The one she saved for moments when justice worked itself out perfectly. The fallout from Amanda's humiliation had been spectacular. Her social circle had crumbled, with former friends now whispering about what else she might have acquired from family members. 3 of her coffee morning regulars had quietly checked their own collections, finding several pieces mysteriously similar to items that had gone missing from their homes over the years. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Can we talk? About the dolls and everything else. I'd been avoiding family gatherings since the incident, giving everyone time to process what had happened. But maybe it was time to clear the air. Go, Margaret encouraged, reading my expression. I'll have everything ready for the girl's birthday tomorrow. I met James at a quiet cafe downtown. He looked tired, the kind of exhaustion that comes from finally seeing the truth about someone you love. Amanda's moving out, he said without preamble. She's going to stay with her sister in Phoenix. Says she needs a fresh start. I stirred my coffee slowly, and the girls. They're coming with me. We'll share custody. But, he trailed off, then looked at me directly. Did you know? About the other things she'd taken? I shook my head. I only knew about her trying to steal the dolls. But I'm not surprised there was more. He nodded, running a hand through his hair. Patricia's missing jewelry, Susan's antique books, they all turned up in our house. Amanda says she was borrowing them, but sometimes people show us exactly who they are, I said quietly. We just have to be willing to see it. Your girls, he said, changing the subject, they never got to meet their grandmother, did they? No, Mom passed before they were born. But these dolls, they are a piece of her. A way for them to connect with their heritage. The next day, Emma and Sophie's 8th birthday party was a small affair. Just family, Margaret, and a few close friends. The girls sat cross-legged on the floor as Margaret helped me unveil the display case containing their inheritance. These dolls, I began, watching their eyes widen, belong to your great-great-grandmother. She passed them to her daughter, who passed them to her daughter, and then to your grandmother, who gave them to me. And now, they're yours. They're so pretty, Sophie whispered, reaching out to gently touch the glass. Each one has a story, Margaret added, smiling at their wonder. Your mother knows them all, just like your grandmother taught her. As I began telling them about the first doll, a Victorian beauty in blue silk, I caught sight of movement by the door. James stood there, watching silently. Uncle James, Emma called out. Come see our special dollies. He entered hesitantly but soon found himself drawn into the stories, asking questions about each doll's history and significance. It was a healing moment, bridging the rift that Amanda's actions had created. Later that evening, after the party had wound down and the girls were playing carefully with their precious inheritance under Margaret's watchful eye, James pulled me aside. I'm sorry, he said simply, for everything. For not seeing what Amanda was doing, for not standing up for you and the girls. I nodded, accepting his apology. Just make sure Lily and Rose know they're always welcome here. They shouldn't suffer for their mother's choices. That night, as I tucked my daughters into bed, the antique dolls watching serenely from their new home in the girls' specially lit display case, Emma asked, Mom, is Aunt Amanda ever coming back? I don't know, sweetheart, but what matters is that we have each other, and we have these precious memories of your grandmother. And we'll take good care of them, Sophie added sleepily, so we can give them to our daughters someday. I kissed them goodnight, my heart full. My mother had always said that family legacy wasn't just about objects. It was about the values, the stories, and the love that got passed down with them. Looking at my daughters, I knew that legacy was safe in their hands. The dolls stood guard over their sleep, just as they had watched over generations of our family's daughters. And somewhere, I knew my mother was smiling, satisfied that justice had been served and her precious gifts had finally found their rightful home. Get your brats out of my house. Victoria screamed, her face twisted with rage as she shoved my children's backpacks into their trembling hands. I stood in shock, watching my sister-in-law push my kids toward the door while outside, the worst blizzard in decades raged through our small Minnesota town. Victoria, please, I begged, pulling my 10-year-old Emma closer to me as she started to cry. The roads are completely blocked. We can't leave in this weather. Not my problem, Amanda, she sneered, already turning away. I told James that letting you stay here was temporary. I need this space for my home office, and I'm done waiting. My brother James, Victoria's husband of 2 years, was away on a business trip. He'd insisted we stay with them after my house burned down 3 months ago, despite Victoria's obvious displeasure. Now, with him unreachable due to the storm, she'd seized her chance. At least let us wait until the storm passes, I pleaded, thinking of my youngest, 8-year-old Nathan, who was battling a fever. Nathan's sick, and it's 20 below out there. Victoria spun around, her designer sweater catching the light from her precious crystal chandelier. Should have thought about that before you overstayed your welcome. Besides, she smirked, maybe if you hadn't wasted money on those silly art classes for the kids, you'd have found your own place by now. My hands clenched into fists. The art classes were the only thing keeping my children's spirits up after losing everything in the fire. I picked up extra nursing shifts to afford them while simultaneously searching for affordable housing in our overpriced town. Fine, I said, my voice steady despite the fear and anger churning inside me. Let me just grab our coats from thee. Already packed them, Victoria interrupted, gesturing to a garbage bag by the door, along with whatever other junk you had lying around. Now get out before you track more snow onto my imported rugs. I gathered our things with shaking hands, helping Nathan into his coat while Emma sniffled beside me. The children were still wearing their pajamas under their winter gear. Victoria hadn't even given us time to dress properly. As we stepped out into the howling wind, I heard the door lock behind us with a decisive click. Standing in knee-deep snow, I pulled out my phone, desperately searching for a signal. The screen remained stubbornly dark. The storm had knocked out cell service across the region. "Mom," Nathan whimpered, his small body shivering despite the heavy coat. "I don't feel good." "I know, baby," I whispered, pulling him close. "We're going to be okay. We just need to make it to Mrs. Sullivan's house." Our elderly neighbor lived just 3 houses down. She'd offered us a place to stay when the fire first happened, but I'd refused, not wanting to burden her. Now I prayed she was home. The wind cut through our clothes as we trudged through the snow, each step a battle against the elements. Emma clutched my hand while I half-carried Nathan, who was growing warmer with fever by the minute. The garbage bag of our belongings dragged behind us, leaving a trail in the snow. Mrs. Sullivan's porch light was like a beacon in the swirling white. I nearly cried with relief when she opened the door to my frantic knocking, her kind face horrified as she took in our situation. "Good Lord, Amanda, get those babies in here right now." She ushered us inside, already calling for her grandson Michael to bring blankets. "Did Victoria do this, in this weather?" I nodded, too exhausted and cold to speak as she wrapped us in quilts and steered us toward her fireplace. Michael, who was staying with her during the storm, appeared with hot chocolate and concerned eyes. "Nathan's burning up," I managed to say, my medical training kicking in despite my exhaustion. "Do you have any children's Tylenol?" "In the bathroom cabinet," Mrs. Sullivan assured me. "Michael, help Amanda get the children settled in the guest room. I need to make some calls." The next few hours passed in a blur of fever checks, warm baths, and quiet tears. Emma finally fell asleep curled against my side, while Nathan's fever slowly responded to the medication. Mrs. Sullivan insisted we take her guest room, brushing aside my weak protests. "Did you call the police?" Michael asked quietly after the kids were asleep. "What Victoria did, that's got to be illegal." I shook my head. James gave her legal rights to evict us. The house is in her name, a wedding gift from their parents. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me. My in-laws had always favored their son and, by extension, his wife. "Still," Mrs. Sullivan interjected, her usually gentle voice hard with anger, "there are laws about evicting children in dangerous conditions. When the storm passes, we're calling someone." I didn't have the energy to argue. Instead, I checked my phone again, hoping for a signal. Still nothing. James was probably still blissfully unaware in his warm Chicago hotel room, believing his perfect wife was taking good care of his sister and nieces. "Try to rest," Mrs. Sullivan urged, patting my hand. "Tomorrow's another day." But as I lay awake that night, listening to the storm howl outside and my children's congested breathing, I made a decision. This wasn't just about me anymore. My children deserved better than to be treated like unwanted baggage, cast aside at someone's convenience. I've been too nice, too understanding of Victoria's adjustment period to having us in her space. I'd overlooked her snide comments, her subtle digs about my parenting, her not-so-subtle hints about us leaving. I believed James when he said she just needed time to warm up to us. No more. Tomorrow, when the storm cleared, I would start making calls. Not to the police, but to the hospital administration where I worked. They'd been trying to convince me to take a position at their new facility in Minneapolis. I'd been hesitant to uproot the kids, but now it seemed like exactly what we needed. Victoria wanted us gone. Fine. But she'd learned that actions have consequences, and karma has a way of coming full circle. Little did I know just how true that would prove to be. 6 months passed faster than I expected. The move to Minneapolis had been a blessing in disguise. My new position as head nurse of pediatric emergency paid nearly double my previous salary, and the hospital's relocation package included 3 months of free housing while we settled in. Emma and Nathan thrived in their new school, making friends quickly and continuing their art classes at a local studio. The light had returned to their eyes, though they still had nightmares about that stormy night. Sometimes I'd find them curled up together in one bed, seeking comfort in each other's presence. I hadn't spoken to Victoria since that night, though James had called repeatedly once the storm cleared. His messages ranged from apologetic to angry, insisting I was overreacting by moving away. Victoria was just stressed, he claimed. She didn't mean it. Come back, we can work this out. I blocked his number after the 10th call. Mrs. Sullivan kept me updated on the local gossip. Victoria had apparently transformed my old room into her Instagram-worthy home office the very next day, posting photos of the renovation as if nothing had happened. She'd even captioned one picture, finally getting rid of the clutter. #blessed #fresh start. The clutter being my children's belongings that she'd thrown into garbage bags. Then came the call that changed everything. I was reviewing patient charts when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Something made me answer instead of letting it go to voicemail. Amanda. Victoria's voice was barely recognizable, stripped of its usual condescension. Please don't hang up. I remained silent, letting her squirm. I need your help, she continued, her voice breaking. Everything's gone wrong. James left me, the house is being foreclosed, and I have nowhere to go. I leaned back in my chair, memories of that snowy night flashing through my mind. That sounds like a personal problem, Victoria. Please, she begged. Your brother, he's been gambling. He lost his job months ago but kept it hidden from me. He took out loans against the house, maxed out all our credit cards. When I finally discovered everything, he just left, disappeared. The bank's giving me until the end of the week to get out. And this concerns me how. My voice was ice cold. I heard you're doing well in Minneapolis. That you have a big house now. She paused and I could practically hear her swallowing her pride. I need a place to stay, just until I figure things out. I have nowhere else to go. The irony was almost poetic. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You want to stay with me? After you threw my sick children out into a blizzard? I know what I did was terrible, she whispered. I was horrible to you and the kids, but I'm desperate. Please, Amanda, I'm family. I thought about Emma and Nathan, how they'd shivered in the snow while Victoria locked the door behind us. How Nathan's fever had spiked dangerously high that night. How my children had cried themselves to sleep in a stranger's house, confused and frightened. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what's interesting, Victoria? The night you kicked us out, I begged you to let us stay until the storm passed. Do you remember what you said? Silence on the other end. You said it wasn't your problem. Well, guess what? Your problems aren't mine either. Amanda, wait. I have to go, I cut her off. I need to pick up my kids from their art class. You know, the one you said I was wasting money on. Turns out Emma's quite talented. She just won a regional competition. The prize money is going into her college fund. Please, he tried one last time. I have nowhere else to go, no family, no friends. Everyone turned their backs on me after what happened with James. I thought about the garbage bags she'd thrown our belongings into, the smirk on her face as she'd locked us out. Then I thought about what my mother would have done in this situation. She'd raised me to be kind, but she'd also taught me about self-respect. Actually, I said, I do have a suggestion for you. Call Mrs. Sullivan. She runs a women's shelter now, helped me get back on my feet after the fire, before you so graciously offered us your spare room. Tell her I sent you. She helps people in crisis situations find temporary housing and job training. Victoria's breath caught. A shelter. But I can't. You can't what? Stay in a shelter? Why not? Is it beneath you? I kept my voice level. It's that or your car, Victoria. Your choice. But my home? That's not an option. Not now, not ever. I understand, she whispered, defeat heavy in her voice. I'm truly sorry, Amanda, for everything. I believe you are, I replied, now that you're the one in need. Goodbye, Victoria. Good luck with everything. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking slightly as I set down the phone. Part of me felt guilty. I'd been raised to help family in need. But a larger part remembered my children's tears, their confusion about why their aunt hated them so much. My phone buzzed again, a text from Mrs. Sullivan. Victoria just called, said you referred her. Don't worry, we'll help her get back on her feet, but we'll make sure she learns some valuable lessons along the way. Those who can't show kindness shouldn't expect to receive it freely. Kiss the kids for me, love Jane. I smiled, imagining Victoria's designer clothes and manicured nails in the shelter's dormitory. Maybe this would teach her the humility she so desperately needed. Maybe she'd learn that treating people with kindness wasn't optional, it was an investment in your own future. But that was her journey to take, not mine. I had a life to live, children to raise, and no room in my heart for toxic family members who only remembered my worth when they needed something from me. Looking at the clock, I realized it was time to pick up the kids. Emma would be excited to show me her latest artwork, and Nathan had a science project he wanted to discuss. These were the moments that mattered, not dwelling on those who tried to break us, but celebrating how much stronger we'd become. As I gathered my things to leave, I couldn't help but think that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. 1 year later, I stood in my kitchen preparing Sunday breakfast when Emma called out from the living room. "Mom, Aunt Victoria is on the local news." I walked over, wiping my hands on a dish towel, to see Victoria being interviewed outside Mrs. Sullivan's shelter. She looked different. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. Instead, she wore simple business casual attire, and her face carried a humility I'd never seen before. After receiving help from the shelter last year, Victoria was saying, I realized I needed to give back. Now, as their new program coordinator, I help other women rebuild their lives. It's taught me that everyone deserves kindness and second chances, even when, especially when, they think they're above needing help. Nathan looked up from his spot on the couch. "Is that the same aunt who made us leave in the snow?" "Yes, honey," I replied, watching Victoria describe the shelter's new initiatives. People can change, sometimes for the better. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Sullivan. "Victoria's done well here. Started as a resident, worked her way up, really transformed herself. She's asked about you and the kids a few times. Never pushed, just wanted to know if you were doing okay. Thought you should know. Love, Jane." I sat with that information for a while, remembering the frightened, desperate woman who'd called me a year ago. The one who'd learned the hard way that karma comes full circle. A week later, an envelope arrived in the mail. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Amanda, Emma and Nathan, I saw your Christmas card photo on Mrs. Sullivan's desk. The kids have grown so much and you all look so happy. It made me realize how much damage I caused, trying to keep up appearances while tearing apart real family bonds. The night I kicked you out was the worst thing I've ever done. I know saying sorry isn't enough, but I am truly, deeply sorry. The person I was then, entitled, selfish, cruel. I don't recognize her anymore. I don't want to." Living at the shelter, hearing other women's stories, it changed me. Made me see how privileged and petty I'd been. Every night, when new residents arrived scared and hopeless, I remember you standing in that snowstorm with your children. I use that memory to fuel my commitment to be better, to help others. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or to re-enter your lives. You've built something beautiful without me, and I respect that. I just wanted you to know that losing everything helped me find myself, and in some way, I have you to thank for that. The Kids Art Scholarship Fund I mentioned in the news, it's named after Emma and Nathan. Every year, it'll help children at the shelter pursue their creative passions, the same ones I once mocked you for supporting. Take care, Victoria. I folded the letter carefully, thinking about cycles of hurt and healing, about how sometimes people need to lose everything to understand what really matters. That evening, as I watched Emma help Nathan with his art project, a family portrait for his school's exhibition, I made a decision. I picked up my phone and typed out a message. Asterisk Victoria, thank you for your letter. The scholarship fund is a wonderful idea. The kids have an art show next month at the community center. If you'd like to come, you're welcome. No pressure, just an open door. Amanda asterisk. Her response came quickly. I'd be honored, but only if you're all truly comfortable with it. The last thing I want is to disrupt your peace. I smiled, recognizing that this was indeed a different Victoria. One who had learned to put others first, to respect boundaries, to understand that trust must be earned. We'll start with the art show, I replied. Take it from there. Later, tucking the kids into bed, Emma asked about the letter. Are we really going to let Aunt Victoria come to our show? I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes people make terrible mistakes, then work very hard to become better. When they do, it's okay to give them a chance to show their change is real. But it's also okay to take it slow, to protect our hearts. She nodded thoughtfully. Like in my art class, Mrs. Bennett says mistakes can become beautiful if you learn to work with them instead of hiding them. Exactly like that, I smiled, kissing her forehead. As I turned out the lights, I thought about second chances and fresh starts, about how sometimes the worst storms can clear the way for new growth. Victoria would never again be the person I trusted with my children's safety, but maybe she could become someone different, someone who understood the value of kindness, the weight of consequences, and the true meaning of family. After all, the best revenge isn't just about getting better. Sometimes it's about making the world a little better too.